Chapter 4 The Mystery Lights.
No more cutting, no more scars, Bo groaned, trembling. Terrified, he braced for a slashing. Instead, the laser, now humming like a bumblebee, slowed at the last instant and gently contacted his stomach. It then bathed the open gash until his skin glowed white. It looked hot, but it didn't hurt. Instead, it cleaned the wound. Waste that had leaked into the hole from the bag bubbled back up and trickled down Bo's skin. This went on for nearly a minute. Bo didn't dare move, his eyes glued to the light. Once the mess stopped oozing out, the laser moved to one end of the hole. Then it traveled slowly along the open scar toward the other end. As it did, the edges stuck together as if being soldered. Bo saw and smelled wisps of smoke, but there was still no pain. Finally, its task done and the wound sealed, the humming stopped and the light retracted through the ceiling. Bo exhaled. Then he took several deep breaths to try and calm his nerves. Finally, he got around to cleaning himself up. First, he turned on the shower a trickle and rinsed himself off from the chest down, then patted himself dry with his towel. Then he worked to stop the bleeding from around the edge of the bag. The scissors, gauze, tape, and neosporin in his backpack came in handy. He used up most of the ointment. He then emptied, washed out, and patched the bag so nothing more spilled out. Finally, he pulled on a pair of cutoffs, leaving them partly unzipped to keep pressure off his stomach and back. Then he slid into a t-shirt, pulled it over his open pants, and headed to the SUV. The Dunns settled in for the drive home and immediately started talking again about the shark and the rescue. Ty again protested the fact that he and Bo had been in the water so long without help. Abby turned around in the front seat. "You guys have no idea how fast you got to those little boys. I've never seen you move like that. Dad and I weren't that far behind you on the beach, but when we got to where you went in, I had to stop and calm down the little boy's mother and get her to hand me her daughter," she said. But she was so upset all she could do was scream. I finally grabbed the little girl, slapped the mom, and yelled that her sons were going to die, along with mine, if she didn't act like a grown-up and get out there. She sucked it up and ran out behind your dad, who was trying to swim out to you, well, as best he could. She glared at him and stopped mid-sentence. Seeing Abby tense up and go silent, Blake chimed in. He reminded his sons they were pretty far out there, and he admitted it probably seemed like a lifetime to them, but the delay really was only a few moments. Finally, there was no more to say. Abby turned back around and eventually nodded off, exhausted. Blake turned on the radio to get the final score of his game, and no one asked Bo why he had taken so long changing or if the bag or cramp or anything else was all right. The seeming lack of concern upset him at first, but he decided it was for the best this time because he had no way of explaining the healing laser. Besides, the silence gave him time to think. After a few minutes, he tapped Ty on the shoulder. "Do you think what we did came from our dreams, our visions?" Bo signed. Already drowsy, Ty smiled. "Maybe. It was a lot like them. We did good helping." "Speaking of helping," said Bo, "thanks for keeping the shark from chomping me." Ty smiled again. "You saved me first." A moment later, he too had nodded off. Bo's mind kept working, though. Could all the voices, all the visions, all the mind-messing junk that's been going on, ending in the shark episode today, could they all be connected, he wondered, trying to add it all up? And if they are, how? And why? It took nearly 30 minutes to cross the coastal hills and get to the freeway. All the curves and braking were hard on Bo. His stomach still hurt from the bag and the mega cramp. His back was throbbing, and then there was the healing he couldn't stop thinking about. Normally, this part of the drive lulled him to sleep like it had his mom and Ty. Not today. As they climbed the freeway on-ramp, Blake whispered something to Abby, not realizing Bo was still awake. When she didn't respond, he looked over and saw her head bobbing with the motion of the SUV. He nudged her elbow, waking her up, and he spoke a little louder. "Do you think anyone noticed?" he asked. "Noticed what?" she said, still drowsy. "Do you think anyone noticed the light beams that shined on the boys right before they saw the shark?" It took her a second to focus on the question as her mind cleared. "I doubt it. I'm surprised you did. You never tune into the guys." Then she paused. "Let's keep this between us. The less they know, the better." Bo caught the tiny reflection of passing headlights in the edge of Abby's left eye as she blinked back a tear. "What is it with these boys and lights, anyway?" she whispered. "Lights and then pain. Always pain." It was late, a couple of hours after the Dunns had returned home from Stinson. Ty had already crashed, and Bo was sitting on the floor in the upstairs bathroom, taking forever to peel off the makeshift patch job he'd slapped on at the beach. He needed to prep his damaged skin and put on a new bag. The pain was excruciating, 10 times worse than pulling tape off a hairy spot on your arm. He felt totally alone. It would be nice to get more than "You okay in there?" through the bathroom door every half hour when someone roams down the hall, he muttered. Bo always left the door unlocked, just in case. As he peeled away the last blood-stained piece of the old bag, he was startled by a soft knock on the door. It was his mom. She asked if he could use a hand. Bo hesitated for a second, surprised at the offer. Then he covered up and said, "Yeah, thanks." He couldn't help wondering, though, if she really wanted to help or just make sure he didn't create the same kind of mess he'd left in there the night before. Abby edged the door open and gazed down at her son. She moaned and caught her breath and then kneeled beside him. She had him lean back against the cabinet. Then she took a closer look at his damaged skin. "This is awful. Does it hurt as bad as it looks?" Bo nodded as his mother reached for the medicine cabinet and pulled out a bottle of rubbing alcohol. "Can we use this instead?" he offered, handing her the almost empty Neosporin tube. She nodded. "I'd 100 times rather clean up a disaster like you left in here last night than see you go through this," she said, twisting the cap. "I'm really sorry about that," Bo said. He realized he'd been a jerk for questioning her motives, even for a second. "Don't worry about it," she sighed as she squirted the remaining ointment on his skin. "I figured out long ago that I'm here to pick up the pieces, even when they don't make sense. Now, spread this around where the bag goes. It'll take a few minutes to dry." It stung as Bo rubbed the stuff on the skin around his exposed intestine, but it started to feel better fast. As they waited, Bo remembered his mother's comment on the ride home about lights and pain. He had to ask. "Hey, Mom, what lights were you and Dad talking about in the car a little while ago?" "You heard that?" she asked. Bo nodded. She twice started to answer and then stopped. Finally, she took a deep breath and let the air out slowly. As she opened her mouth a third time, Ty stumbled in, needing to use the bathroom, like there weren't 2 other bathrooms in the house. He saw a party and wedged himself, still groggy, onto the floor between his mom and brother. "Can't give me 5 minutes of mom time, can you, Ty?" thought Bo, shaking his head. "It's just as well you're both here," said Abby, speaking and signing because Ty didn't have his implant on. "I never ever wanted to worry you with this. I've never even told your father." She paused again and then launched in. And she went a completely different direction than Bo had expected. "When I was pregnant with you, each of you, I had, well, really, really odd, experiences." "Don't that happen to all pregnant women?" asked Ty verbally. "Not like this." She hesitated again and glanced at each boy as if questioning whether this was the right thing to do. Finally, she continued. First of all, there were the lights. A light glowed from my stomach the moment I found out I was pregnant with each of you. Then there were several minutes of agitation. Really bad agitation inside me, like there was a fight going on. Though I could never see anyone around us, I felt as if someone was attacking. It was so frightening. She was speaking faster now, not stopping to breathe. And since I couldn't see him, there was nothing I could do to stop him. After a few minutes, the awfulness would go away, but then I would become very, very sad. Because I felt like someone had hurt you, and it was all my fault for letting it happen. Abby inhaled deeply. Then I would feel guilty and become despondent for hours, and it happened so many times, especially with Bo. She stopped, and she cried. A lot. It was like she'd finally purged something that needed to come out, and there was so much it was like wringing water from a saturated sponge. She leaned forward and placed her head in her hands. How do I possibly respond to this, thought Bo, his mouth hanging open. Without hesitating, Ty stroked Abby's hair and rubbed her back. He'd always had what seemed to be a magical connection with his mother, and he quickly helped her calm down. Jealous of that link and eager to help, Bo leaned toward her and sang the chorus to the song Perfect Fan. She liked it when he sang, so he hoped this would help. As she settled down, Bo and Ty looked hard at each other. So many questions. All Bo knew for sure was that he had an incredible urge to protect her. He saw the same determination in Ty's face. After a couple of minutes, Abby wiped her eyes, blew her nose, and reached over to touch Bo's inflamed skin. That's dry enough, she said. You know how to do the rest. I think I'll head off to bed. She sighed as she pulled herself up. With her makeup off, and the long, hard day making it impossible for her to pretend she was upbeat, her face showed more miles than years. As she turned to leave, she looked down and smiled, kind of, and then she trudged out the door and down the hall. Ty, remembering why he'd come in the first place, asked for a minute. So Bo crawled out and pulled the door shut behind him. Soon he heard the toilet flush. Ty wandered out and headed toward the bedroom. Your turn, his younger brother signed. And put some clothes on, for crying out loud. Sometimes there are no words, Bo thought. It took him only 20 minutes to finish putting on the new bag, a record for him. By the time he got to bed, Ty had gone back to sleep. But sleep and Bo were miles apart. He couldn't lie on his back or his stomach. Everything hurt. So he rolled onto his side. It was less painful, but he couldn't sleep on his side. It didn't matter anyway. Bo's brain was a pump shooting adrenaline through his body every time he thought about last night or Stinson or the light episodes Abby had just described. After an hour of this, he got so frustrated he yelled into his pillow. Random, uncontrolled thoughts skipped through his mind as he dangled between asleep and awake, till he felt like he was hallucinating. Completely out of it now, one dreamlike, fatigue-fueled fantasy actually seemed familiar. Where are they taking me? A beautiful girl asked, stunned and wide-eyed as she was pried from Bo's arms by two burly men. They all seemed to be spirits in the shape of humans, but without physical bodies. Is it final? Is the decision final? She hyperventilated as they whisked her away. Bo rushed after them, his feet gliding over the ground, not pounding it. Then he noticed that he, too, was a spirit. He shouted her name, Chloe Chen, and yelled for her to fight free. He screamed at them to leave her alone. Only then did he notice the chaos and stress and fear all around him. Thousands, no, it must have been millions of spirits were scrambling in every direction. Then they were herded in one direction, with Chloe Chen being dragged into the middle of them. I didn't mean to, Zool, she cried as she threw a look back at Bo, now 25 yards away. The gap widened and there were too many souls between them. and they were all moving too fast for the young man to make up the ground. "Why did you listen to that hack and his garbage about nobody being lost?" he screamed, realizing he was losing her. He was frustrated, sad, and furious all at the same time. "I didn't know it would be like this," she shrieked, still staring at him. Then she looked up in terror at her captors. "Where are you taking me? Where are you?" Bo jolted to a sitting position in bed, frantic but with his eyes still shut. He couldn't tell whether he was asleep or awake. But this maddening episode was fading like a dream, its details wisping into the night. Then everything was gone. Chloe Chen, the other spirits, the drama, the panic, everything. Except he thought he could remember something about her face. "Yeah," he whispered, struggling to wake up while straining to hold on to what was left of the episode. "It was a girl. An incredible, beautiful, wonderful girl. Chloe Chen." Just then, the bedroom door squeaked open. His eyes prying open, Bo could see his mother in the pale light as he came fully awake. She tiptoed in and knelt beside his bed. Perhaps he would get a little mom time after all. "I had hoped Stinson Beach would be a good, fun thing for you, Bo," she said. "Guess I swung and missed on this one." "No, you didn't," whispered Bo, gathering himself and grateful to have his mind taken off his frustration. "It was actually pretty amazing. It just hurt a lot." "This isn't the first time I've heard noises in here at night, you know," said Abby. "You've been talking in your sleep since before your surgery. Now Ty's doing it." "Bad dreams, I guess. Lots of stress, Mom," said Bo. "That's probably it," said Abby. "Events like today don't help much, I suppose." She gazed down through the soft darkness at her son. "Now, where does it not hurt?" "My shoulders and nose are pretty much okay," said Bo. Hearing that, Abby sat down on the floor, her weight on her right leg, and reached up. She gently tickled Bo's right shoulder as he lay facing her on his left side. "I'd sing to you like I used to," she said, "but something tells me we're past that." Bo was starting to relax. He needed an excuse to keep her there longer. "Mom," he said, "I've seen you in action, away from Ty and me. I've seen how much you get done and how well you do everything, okay? You're so organized and in charge. I've seen you run things at church and all you do for the school. It's so cool." The tickling stopped for a moment. "Mom, are you listening?" "Yes, I'm still here," she said. Bo continued. "You could have done anything you wanted, and that's just one more thing that frustrates me. Maybe more than anything else. I see how much I'm keeping you from what you really want to be doing, from your dreams." "You're a smart one, and thank you for noticing," she said. "But do you think I do this blindly? I could have done other things, you're right. And I've had some really good offers. The world is a big place with lots of opportunities. Just understand, I choose to do what I'm doing, to focus on you and Ty, and on Steph and Madison before you." "But where's the payoff for you?" asked Bo. "It's right here, right now, moments like this," said Abby. She took his hand and lay down on the floor between his bed and Ty's. How does she do it, wondered Bo. How does she turn guilt into comfort? With that, his mind and body finally laid down their weapons and he drifted off to sleep. As if sleep guaranteed rest.
End of chapter.